All right, so I've kind of noticed this grandparent thing is pretty cool. Anybody notice that out there? You got grandkids? I was thinking, but I figure as the grandfather, it's probably the best position to be in. It really is. It's because the only thing you're responsible for is fun and cool stuff. Really. You got to make sure that the kids are having fun, and you get them things to do that, right? And cool stuff. So all the kind of current stuff going on that's stupid, you can re-steer and influence them away from that stuff back to the cool stuff, 80s style. All right, so, but as I'm looking for stuff, well, see, here's the thing. On the 5-year-old, a little of my influence went in there because, I got a Jeep. Well, he's got a Jeep. Yeah, one of those battery Jeeps you drive around in, right? See? So I'm holding the little guy back when we saw him a few weeks ago in Houston, and he's looking at my 9-line T-shirt and literally points and says, helicopter. You can see where my mind's already going. I'm thinking we have Army aviation here, right? He's going that direction. Booyah, let's do this. All right. So I actually was looking for helicopters at the toy store. Yeah, yes, I was, dear. But the stupid numbers are on there for 3 and up. He's only 2. I know. Walk it off. Wait it out. All right, but while I'm going through the aisle, everything is superheroes. Do you notice that? Even now when they keep screwing up the movies. You notice that? Because the only movies they make nowadays are superhero movies, warmed over again and again and again. And now they're just getting bored. So it's like, well, let's make, Captain America a girl. Maybe Superman could be a girl too, right? And you're getting the crazy stuff and you're like, this isn't even fun anymore. This is just getting stupid. But we are going to talk about superheroes from let's go from my lens kind of back. Is the 80s okay? You good with that? I know it's, folks, I know some is beyond that. But all right. So in the 80s, we had Saturday morning cartoons still, okay? And yes, we still had comic books. It wasn't online or anything. So that's where the exposure to superheroes would come from. You're tracking. All right. Now, everybody knows what we're talking about, right? We're talking Superman, right? Spider-Man, right? Wonder Woman. Okay. Aquaman. Never really cared for Aquaman. Neither did I. All right. And then can Batman be included? He didn't have any superpowers, though. He had a cool belt and a cool car. Okay, so Batman, all right. And that's kind of like the main ones. I mean, I know that when you watch what's the Marvel? No, not Marvel. It was Saturday morning. The Justice League. They had like a weird Wonder Twins. Anybody get into that? Remember that? Come on, folks, you guys. They Wonder Twin powers activate. Form of a dog, shape of water or whatever. I don't know. It was pretty crazy, man. It was highly unbelievable. Highly unbelievable, folks. All right, well, that's kind of what comes with superheroes, right? Because you're really kind of going beyond reality. Because, I mean, how many, evil criminal masterminds are trying to take over the earth? Wait a minute. Maybe reality has caught up to us, right? No, but I mean, come on. The stories were just kind of crazy, you'd have like sharks with lasers on their heads swimming after our heroes, and they would overcome the difficulties with their superpowers. And there was always a moment, like, for example, when Superman, flew into a bunch of kryptonite and couldn't do anything, right? And then someone would have to come save him. So, I mean, there was a lot of intrigue and just there was some fun there. And it pulled us in. Now, my experience, other than the 2 I mentioned with superheroes, I was a big Gambit fan. Come on, there's got to be a kid out there that remembers Gambit. Anybody? The cards. He had the cards. He would put powers and he'd throw the card. Okay, Wolverine came along and he was kind of knocked out of the, hierarchy there. All right, I mean, I totally gone like, there used to be a guy. It's true. No, actually, I think my first encounter, I do remember Captain America. He was pretty cool. I liked him. But I was probably 4 or 5 years old. We had a beach towel that we would use when you'd finish bath time, right? Okay. Now, on this beach towel, it had a design. I'm going to say it, and I have to say it slowly as to pronounce it, and so it doesn't get misstrewn on the tape. You ready? All right. Lord help me. It was a Schlitz beer. Did I say that okay? That's not going to come out wrong? Okay. Schlitz beer. So it had a big S and Schlitz at the bottom. And I remember getting out and being like, well, it's a big S on the back. Hey, cool, look at this. Put it on my neck, and I was gone. I was bouncing all over the house, and parents were like, yeah, do it. Yeah, they just wear him out early, man. So it was good. So that was my first superhero that I kind of made up. I was the Schlitz man, all right? I had no idea what beer was at the time, no clue. All I know is I had a cool cape, all right? So that was good. But a lot of times when it comes to the superheroes you like, right, it really kind of is the effect they have on you. Like none of us like Aquaman for some reason. I just don't, all right? But I mean, some of the other superheroes, you're drawn to them. Maybe because it's like, I think that's neat, or maybe there's just some pull. And if we think about it for a minute, don't we do that throughout all our lives? But we eventually move from superheroes onto other things. And, us guys, of course, we have just cool toys in general, right? I mean, we got aircraft, we got all sorts of stuff if you're in the military. We do, Joyce, we do. We got motorcycles, we got all sorts of mean, rough, and tough stuff. I mean, ladies, let's face it. I mean, Hobby Lobby doesn't have that stuff. I know, you guys got some cool stuff too, all right? But you really do kind of shift as you grow older. But I think something that doesn't shift, and we may not call it superheroes because super denotes like some type of special powers. But what doesn't change is the fact that I believe we've always got heroes in life, right? Now, heroes, again, we could even address that. I mean, even as a young kid, I believe it or not, I started getting into the hero realm. 1974, Star Wars, right? Or 76, 74, yeah, I think. 77. The original was 77?
Well, that's when the movie was released.
Wow. No, I'm sure I appreciate that, man. I may have miscalculated here. All right, give me a second. I got to get on the... No, when Star Wars did come out, I think the focus was, there was a new type of hero, an action hero, so to speak. It really was. So you had, Luke Skywalker swinging over the gorge like he was really going to get hit by a bunch of stormtroopers, right? I mean, we didn't know how bad shots they were at the time. But you were on the edge of your seat because he could get killed, right? We know that's not the case anymore. But I was less of a Star Wars. Don't please keep the apples and fruit. I was less of a Star Wars. I was more of a Star Trek kid. I really was. It was James T. Kirk. It was Scotty. I was like Battlestar Galactica. It was Apollo and Starbuck. I mean, I was into this stuff. And I thought one of the coolest things that ever came out was a dude named Indiana Jones. Oh, yeah. His first name was a name of a state. That's a tough guy, all right? You really do. Like Dakota Smith or something. I mean, that's would be a superhero. No, just a hero. But, you were drawn to these things. Why? Because they were out saving the world. And really, kind of deep down inside, sometimes does everybody kind of think, I wish I could save the world, especially now, right? If someone could just step up and save the world, that would be phenomenal. But again, we're living outside the bounds of reality when we sometimes think this way. But with heroes, we can certainly kind of start to look a little bit and say, you know what? Those are some good qualities. If I could just take a little piece of that hero because I like his persistence or I like his courage or her courage. You see what I'm saying? And really, there are times I think we do kind of look up to heroes for something to take away from that, to actually be able to live. And we use them as an example. possibly on how to live our lives. Because the true heroes are the ones that really do have morals, values, character, right? Character. Now, some of the other things that kind of drove me as a kid, and I considered these people heroes, the G.I. Joe guys. The G.I. Joe, I'm not talking the little 6-inch guys. There were ones that were about this big. They really were. And they were fully, posable. They had stubble on their beards. And get this, they had the kung fu grip. They did. They had the kung fu grip. And they were like, wow. And when those came out, it was like, that's my toy. That's my toy. Now, I never did get the, man, you know what I'm talking about here, the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. The prize of all Christmas presents. Oh, yeah, because back then it was like $200. It was like the size of this table here, the altar. It was huge. We all wanted, I still want it to this day. I really do. I want the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. But anyway, I had something better because my grandparents would come over every year with what I considered a bag of heroes. A bag of the little green army men. Yes. I had about 600 of these little guys. Right? You remember them? The dude with the pistol, the rifle guys, and for some reason the mine guy, right? The minesweeper guy's like, why is this guy even in the package? All right. Anyway, and so in a sense, it's kind of like the army men. They kind of became a hero. And I would play, folks. I would set up World War II battles in the basement. Because one Christmas, I actually got the Guns of Navarone playset. It's about this high. Had 2 big guns, and it came with all the little German guys, all right? The little gray German guys, and I'm like, it's on. It's on in the basement. Now remember, I didn't have the aircraft carrier, right? Right? I had a pool table, though. Dad had a pool, so I had a super carrier. You can see what I'm saying. I put a board on top of it. It was the aircraft carrier. And we would move towards, well, we didn't move because it was pretty heavy. It was moving towards the Guns of Navarone. And then we launched the paper planes off of it. And then the guys would get out, and I send the little plastic tanks in first. And then the infantry would come up. 3, 4, 5 days of battle in the basement, all right? And we would finally take Navarone. And then I'd be like, well, let me set it up again. I think I could take it in 4 days next time. You see what I'm saying? It was a good time. And so you can see why in my little world, I kind of went into my profession, right? Because my heroes were Captain America, Little Green Army Men, G.I. Joe. You see, we can really be influenced by what we look up to sometimes. It's very important to realize that. Also, we need to be careful because you don't want to look to the wrong type of examples, right? For inspiration or like guidance in life. Thank God as we grow wiser. Jesus pokes us a lot saying, don't do that, right? We ask forgiveness, we start over again, we screw up, right? He starts again. But it's always good to remember that there's people in our lives that have influenced us. Or there can be people in our lives that influence us. So the question is, are heroes important? I would say yes. I believe so. Can we learn from them? Of course. Both good and bad. But hopefully, if they're good Christian people, we truly can learn something good. And let me just tell you, this past, I believe it was Wednesday. When was Halloween? Tuesday. Wednesday was actually our chance to sit down and say, you know what? There are Christian heroes. All right, I had a few Christians that stood out in my life that really shaped my life. One guy was John Howard. This is when I was in junior high school. He was a senior graduating, and he was a good Christian kid at the church. Went into the army, of course. See, yeah? I was always looking up to him because he married his high school sweetheart, Candace. And John, just watching him, I started to say to myself, I still say this to this day. When I grow up, I want to be like that guy. I really do. He loves God and he's going into the army. He came back, man, like, wow, that's John? I mean, he was huge, stacked. Well, I was a kid, right? He's just big, all muscular, preaching Jesus still. But he'd stand there and say, yes, sir, no, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Beautiful discipline. And I'm like, this is good stuff. I want to be like him when I grow up. Another one of my Christian heroes was Mr. Hill, my history teacher in high school. Yeah, okay. You could actually classify him as an actual hero. Fighter pilot, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. Yeah, run those numbers. Run those numbers. It was possible to do that. All right? And he just opened up history to all of us kids with a little bit of Christian perspective. Because back in those days, you could do that in high school. Believe it or not, a teacher could get up there and tell you the right way without getting in trouble. Awesome stuff. And then the last one was Pastor Steve Anselmo, my best friend's dad growing up. This was a man of God. I was like, wow. There were times when I was just struggling as a young Christian to just connect with God, find God, be bold enough to even show forth God in my life. And he was always doing it. And I said, that's the example I need to follow. I need boldness and courage to simply just stand up for Jesus Christ and tell other people about him. Folks, what I want you to do is kind of in your mind start to think, are there people, Christians in your life who have influenced you in some way, who have been an inspiration, an example? You don't necessarily have to say, hey, when I want to be like them when I grow up. But think about it for a minute. I think everyone in here could identify at least one Christian that reached out to you or was there for you that made an impact on your faith to this day. I really believe it. It's hard to go through life never to encounter anything like that. Because God uses us to help others. As a body of believers, we lift each other up, we edify each other, we help each other, we pray for each other. And believe it or not, we can be an influence on others around us in a good sense. We have to remember that. Why is any of this important? Superheroes, heroes, little green army men? Let me tell you. Wednesday was All Saints Day. And I know on the contemporary side, it's like, that's the church calendar, the traditional side, right? No, we're still Lutherans on this side. You understand that? So yes, All Saints Day is still something. And it is still important to us. So, All Saints Day, the 1st. What's the day after? November 2nd. Yeah, I know. I've heard that one. I heard that one in the first service. All right. It's All Souls Day. Before All Saints Day was All Hallows Eve. Oh, I said it. All Hallows Eve. Christian Day. All Hallows Eve. Well, that's Halloween right now. Yeah. It formed a 3-day holiday in the church. You got that day off from work, folks. Hello, bring it back. Get rid of the ghosts and goblins and pumpkins on Halloween and bring it back to being Christian again, and you can have 3 days off. Good stuff. It really is. So what is All Saints Day? Now, it used to be celebrated, believe it or not, the first Sunday after Pentecost. Yeah, in May. All right. Now, it wasn't celebrated as a holiday until about the 700s, 800s, church-wide. Okay? And it was in May when it had actually happened. So trying to connect Halloween, All Hallows Eve with, paganism, you can't do it. It doesn't fit the time frame. You see what I'm saying? Halloween's just a secular holiday. And no, this is not a sermon about Halloween. So I'm just explaining some things to you. Later, it was actually moved by accident to November 1st. It really was. Because some pope was dedicating a chapel on November 1st and said, hey, this is All Saints Chapel. Hey, let's just make this All Saints Day church-wide. Boom, it's in place. That's when it all started, probably in mid-800s. Pretty crazy, huh? Well, what does it mean? What do we do on All Saints' Day? I think this is pretty cool. The church, us here on earth, remember and commemorate the church triumphant. Who's the church triumphant? Those who made it, folks. Those who are in heaven. We celebrate their lives and what they've done. That's what All Saints' Day is about. We're celebrating the heroes, the Christian heroes who have gone on before us. So it's important that we remember, based on this day, there are times when I think we should sit back and say, you know what? Let me study or read about those who have endured the faith before us. Life wasn't always as easy as it is today, folks. You realize that, right? There was a time when the church was what? Persecuted, right? Still is. We're just lucky to live in America where we've got some freedoms, right? But there are still Christians out there that fight for their faith daily. And they're not cowering in caves, believe it or not. In persecution, they are going out doing what we should do here and spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ to everybody around them. That's faith. That's what you want to be when you grow up as a Christian. A bold Christian, full of courage to stand up no matter what the cost for Jesus Christ. Isn't that cool? So as Christians, we sit there and say, yeah, that's what I want to do when I grow up. But we watch, we study, and you could look at the entire church history. Remember, when it comes to church history, Acts chapter 28 was not the end of the church. And then it restarted up with Martin Luther. No. We've got 2,000 years of heroes that you could look back on. Oh, they weren't perfect. They were just like you and me. They made mistakes, but they overcame. And now reside in heaven. And you know what they're doing up there? They're looking down on all of us. And they're looking down and going, you guys can do it. Come on. You can do it. Let's go. Mike, you can do it. Jesse, you can do it. Mark, you can make it. Up there cheering us right now. It's like a big race. Keep going, Christian. Keep going. Stand strong. Finish the race. Today's passage is Hebrews 12, 1 through 3. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Therefore, since we are surrounded by what? The great cloud of witnesses, the heroes of faith who have gone on before us. This is the this is the way you apply what we're talking about today. We're surrounded by these people. We really are. We look to their example. We learn from their example. We get hope from their example. We're inspired by what they have done before us. Then what do? Throw off everything that hinders. What is the things that hinder? All the junk out there in society. Lord, thanks. All the junk out there in society. The stuff that distracts you from God and the Word of God. Yeah, that's the culture. It wants you to go do its things, but instead, God's calling you back to say, no, pray, read the Bible, preach my gospel. Throw all that stuff off, because it's just going to distract you. Then it gets even more in depth here when it says, all right, let's see, throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Folks, you know we're sinners, right? Right? Don't do it. That's what Jesus is calling us to do. Don't sin. And if you're struggling with it, say, Jesus, help me. Help me to overcome these sins. Then throw it off. Take it, throw it on the ground, stamp on it. All right, that's kind of fun to do. All right. And then run the race with perseverance. The race that God has marked out for us. You keep going. When things get hard, you keep going because you know, dear God, this race is hard. Oh yeah, it was hard for everybody that made it too. But they made it. They're up there cheering for you. And here's the best part of it all, folks, right here. Fixing our eyes on what? Jesus. If it gets hard, that's all you got to do. And that's what we should have our eyes on the entire time as we run the race. Why, folks? Because we can talk all we want about the heroes in heaven, the heroes here on earth. But who's the true hero? Jesus. Amen.